Days passed in silence. The castle of Eldravia stood still beneath the same endless twilight. Yet something inside its cursed walls had changed, something soft and invisible, like a heartbeat under stone. Queen Lyra could feel it. She no longer drifted through her halls as a ghost without purpose. She now walked as someone searching for something she could not let go of. The Shadow's voice, Kale's voice, had awakened something long lost inside her heart. Each night, when the rain whispered against the windows, she felt the same warmth touch her skin, faint, like a memory. And though she could not see him, she knew he was near. But love, even when pure, was dangerous in Eldravia. The curse fed on emotion. Every time Lyra remembered a piece of her past, the curse grew stronger, and she weaker. Still, she could not stop. She began to wander the castle's forbidden wings, the parts sealed since the day of the curse. Behind broken doors and dusty mirrors, she searched for traces of Kale, his voice, his face, anything that would tell her who they once were. In one forgotten corridor, she found an old portrait covered in ash. She wiped it with trembling fingers and gasped. The painting showed a man in silver armor standing beside her throne. His eyes were warm gold, his expression both proud and tender. Her own painted hand rested gently over his. She stared at that image for a long time. "You were by my side," she whispered. "Not a stranger. Not a ghost!" Her heart ached, but before she could cry, a shadow moved behind her. "Lyra!" She turned quickly, her breath caught in her throat. The same shimmering shape appeared, faint and flickering. Kyle. He looked weaker than before, like smoke struggling to hold form. Yet his voice still carried the same sorrowful strength. "You shouldn't remember me," he said softly. "Every memory you take back hurts you." Lyra shook her head. "Let it hurt. I would rather remember pain than live in this emptiness." Kyle's golden eyes glimmered. "You don't understand, my love. The curse is built upon our bond. The more you remember me, the closer the curse comes to consuming you. It feeds on longing." Lyra took a deep breath and stepped closer. "Then let it feed. I would rather die remembering you than live forgetting you." For a moment, silence filled the corridor. The candles flickered with uncertain light. Kale's form trembled, torn between fear and devotion. He looked at her with eyes full of longing. "You were always braver than I ever was." Lyra reached out again, though her hand passed through him. Still she smiled softly. "And you were always foolish for love." Kyle gave a small, sad smile. "That foolishness is all that remains of me." As their words faded, a sudden gust of wind blew through the hall. The mirrors cracked, and a whisper, sharp and cruel, filled the air. "You should not have remembered." Lyra froze. The voice was not Kale's. It was ancient, echoing like thunder. The air turned cold enough to bite her skin. Kale's shadow turned toward the darkness, his expression fierce. "Arian!" he growled. Lyra's heart pounded. "Who is that?" Kyle's voice was low and bitter. "The god of chains, the one who cursed me. He watches us even now." The air shimmered, and for a heartbeat, Lyra saw it, a massive pair of silver eyes forming in the dark clouds above the castle ceiling. They looked down on her, full of divine cruelty. "Queen of sorrow," the voice of Arian spoke. "You should have remained asleep in forgetfulness. Love was never meant for creatures of dust." Lyra stood her ground. "If love was not meant for us," she said boldly, "then why does it make your heaven tremble when we remember it?" The silver eyes narrowed. A rumble shook the castle. "Your defiance will destroy you." Kyle moved closer, standing protectively in front of her. "Then let it destroy us both. We have suffered enough." The god's laughter echoed through the walls. "So be it. Let your memories drown you." With those words, the presence vanished. The cold faded, but the ground beneath their feet was marked with a strange pattern, a glowing sigil of chains wrapping around their shadows. Lyra's knees weakened. She felt her strength drain, her vision dimming. Kale caught her in his ghostly arms, his form flickering but trying desperately to hold her. "Lyra!" he shouted. "Stay with me." She blinked weakly, whispering, "Kyle, I'm still here." He tried to pull her closer, though his body was made of mist. "The gods will not win," he said fiercely. "I'll find a way to break this curse." Lyra smiled faintly. "You said that before, didn't you?" Kale looked at her, guilt heavy in his voice. "And when I tried, I doomed us both." The queen lifted her trembling hand and touched the air where his cheek would be. "Then let us not fear our mistakes. Let us face them together." Kale's form glowed faintly, and for a brief second she could almost feel him. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to still. "I can enter your dreams," Kyle whispered. "Only there can I hold you again." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then meet me there, Kale. Meet me where the dawn once lived." He looked at her, a spark of hope lighting his fading form. "I will." And then he disappeared, vanishing into the mist like light swallowed by the sea. That night, Lyra lay in her empty bed. The moonlight crept through the curtains, painting her pale face in silver. Her eyes closed as she whispered his name. "Kyle." The moment his name left her lips, the world around her began to change. The air shimmered. The cold stone of her chamber melted into the scent of wild flowers and sunlight, a place long gone. She stood in a field of golden grass beneath a sky of blue. It was the Eldravia she remembered from her youth. And there, standing among the flowers, was Kale, not as a shadow, but as a man of flesh and light. Lyra ran to him, tears streaming down her face. He caught her in his arms, holding her close for the first time in 100 years. For that moment, the curse did not exist. The gods did not matter. There was only the warmth of his embrace and the sound of her heart finding its rhythm again. "Kyle," she whispered, pressing her head against his chest. "Is this real?" Kale smiled sadly. "It is real enough to hurt." She laughed softly through her tears. "Then I'll take the pain." They stood together under the sun that no longer shone in the real world. Kale brushed her hair back gently. "I dreamed of this moment every night," he said. "Even when I had no body, no breath, I dreamed of you." Lyra looked up at him. "And I waited for a voice I thought I imagined." He kissed her forehead, his touch full of sorrow and love. "You are stronger than the curse, Lyra, but if we keep doing this, the gods will tighten their chains. They will use our love to break you." Lyra took his hand. "Then they will have to watch us defy them, again and again." Kyle looked at her with a sad smile. "You were always my dawn." The dream began to tremble. The golden fields started to fade. The sky turned gray. Lyra's heart pounded. "Kale, what's happening?" Kale's voice grew faint. "The curse is pulling me back. The gods will not let me stay long." Lyra gripped his hand tightly. "Then promise me you'll find a way to return." He held her gaze, his eyes burning with fierce devotion. "Even if I must tear the heavens apart, I will come back to you." As his form began to dissolve, she cried out, "Kyle!" His final words echoed like a vow in the air. "My arms will always be open for you, Lyra, even across the ends of time." The dream shattered. Lyra woke up in her bed, tears on her face. Her hands trembled as she looked out the window. The mist outside had changed. It was thinner, glowing faintly, as if the night itself had begun to remember the color of dawn. And for the first time in a century, Lyra smiled because she knew one thing with all her heart: Kale was coming back. The kingdom of Eldravia once shone brighter than the morning sun. Its rivers were made of silver light and flowers bloomed in every corner. The people sang songs of love and loyalty, and the queen's laughter could heal sorrow itself. But now those days were only memories lost in shadow. For 100 years, dark mist covered Eldravia. The sun no longer rose. The air was still heavy and full of whispers. The great castle that once held joy and warmth now stood like a grave made of stone and silence. At the heart of that silent castle walked Queen Lyra, the cursed queen of dusk. Her beauty remained untouched by time, but her eyes had grown dim, like two stars drowning in endless night. Every step she took echoed across empty halls, as if the walls themselves wept for her. Lyra had forgotten how laughter sounded. She had forgotten the warmth of another's hand, and worst of all, she had forgotten him. Somewhere in her dreams, a shadow lingered, a voice, soft as wind through autumn leaves. But each time she tried to remember it, pain struck her heart, like a blade of glass twisting inside her chest. No one lived in Eldravia anymore. Servants had turned to stone. Nights had faded into dust. Only Lyra remained, trapped in her loneliness, cursed to wander the same endless halls until her soul turned to mist. One night, as cold rain beat against the windows, Lyra stood by the grand mirror in her throne room. Her reflection did not move. It simply watched her, eyes full of quiet grief. "Who are you?" she whispered to the reflection, her voice trembling. For a moment, she thought she saw someone standing behind her. A tall figure, cloaked in shadows, his eyes glowing faintly like dying embers. But when she turned around, there was nothing. Only darkness. The queen closed her eyes. "It's happening again," she murmured. "The ghosts of my memories." But then she heard it. A voice, soft, deep, familiar. "Lyra." Her breath caught in her throat. She turned toward the sound, her heart beating faster than it had in years. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice echoing through the hall. Silence answered. Then, faintly, the whisper came again. "I'm here." Her heart trembled. The sound of that voice was warm and sad, like the last note of a forgotten song. Lyra took a step forward, her eyes scanning the darkness. "Show yourself," she said, "please. If you are a spirit, let me see your face." A faint shimmer of light appeared in the corner of the hall. It was shaped like a man, tall, broad-shouldered, and wrapped in shadows. His eyes glowed faintly golden. Lyra froze. A tear escaped her eye. "You," she whispered, though she did not know why her heart knew his name. The figure stepped closer. His voice was a broken melody. "Lyra, I have missed you." The queen pressed a hand to her chest. "Who are you?" The shadow hesitated as though afraid to speak. "Once I was someone who held you close, but the gods took that away." The air grew colder. The candles flickered. Lyra felt her knees weaken as forgotten feelings, love, sorrow, warmth, rushed back into her. She tried to reach for him, but her fingers touched only air. "Why can't I feel you?" she whispered. "Why does my hand pass through you?" The shadow's voice trembled. "Because I am not of this world anymore. I was cast into the void beyond time. You were cursed to forget me." Lyra stepped closer, shaking her head. "No, I don't want to forget. Tell me who you are." The figure's outline grew brighter for a moment, revealing a glimpse of his face, sharp, beautiful, and sorrowful. His name slipped into her heart like an old memory returning from the grave. "Kale," she whispered. "Your name is Kale." The shadow closed his eyes as if in pain. "You remember?" Lyra felt a sob rise in her chest. "Why do I remember your name but not your face? Why does it hurt so much when I speak it?" Kale lowered his head. "Because love like ours was never meant to exist." Outside, thunder rolled across the dark sky. Lyra's tears fell to the floor. "Tell me the truth, Kale. What happened to our kingdom? Why is everything covered in this night?" Kale looked at her, his eyes glowing faintly. "It was my doing." The queen stared at him in disbelief. "I could not bear to lose you," Kale continued, his voice breaking. "When the gods decreed that your heart would stop, I made a bargain. I traded my soul to keep you alive. But the gods twisted my wish. They bound your life to a curse, a world without light. And they cast me out, to wander between realms, unable to touch you, unable to die." Lyra covered her mouth in shock. "You did this for me?" Kyle nodded slowly. "For love." For a long moment, silence filled the hall. The queen could only stare at him, this ghostly man who had doomed himself for her sake. "I should hate you," she whispered, though her voice trembled with tenderness. "You destroyed everything." "I know." Kale's voice was barely audible. "And I would do it again if it meant your heart would still beat." Lyra turned away, tears streaming down her cheeks. "How can you say that after everything that's been lost?" "Because," Kale said softly, "you were my world. When I lost you, I lost the reason for the sun to rise." The queen sank to her knees. Her body shook with quiet sobs. For the first time in a century, she felt alive, because she felt pain. Cale's form began to fade, like smoke carried by the wind. Lyra looked up, terrified. "No, don't go." He smiled faintly. "I wish I could hold you just once more." She reached out her trembling hands toward the vanishing figure. "Please, Cale." Her voice broke. "Can you give me a hug?" Cale's fading shape paused. The air shimmered, and for a brief heartbeat, she felt warmth around her shoulders, soft, fragile warmth that belonged to a memory, not a body. His voice came like a whisper across time. "My arms have always been open for you." And then he was gone. Lyra fell to the floor, her hands clutching empty air. The world felt colder than ever, but her heart beat stronger. She now remembered love, and with it sorrow. The candles blew out. Only the moonlight remained, slipping through the window like silver tears. Lyra whispered his name again. Kyle. Somewhere in the dark, unseen by mortal eyes, the shadow of a man stood at the edge of her chamber, watching her. His hand trembled as he reached toward her, but he could not cross the barrier that divided their worlds. He whispered, so faintly that even the wind could not carry his words. "Wait for me." Lyra's eyes opened wide. She felt it, his presence again deep inside her chest. Her heartbeat matched a rhythm that was not her own, and outside, beyond the cursed mist, the faintest shimmer of dawn began to glow behind the clouds. The curse had not lifted. The night still reigned, but the darkness had started to stir, because love had remembered its name.